All right, what's happening? It's me, the one and only, yours truly, Robert Phoenix, your Astro Weatherman. As you can tell, I'm in a bit of a different location. I'm hanging out with the Buddha today. I'm actually on the road giving you the Astro Weather from Dallas, Texas, of all places. Let me check my mic. See what we got going on here. Looking good. All right. So yeah, I'm up here in the place where they killed JR and JFK, and I'll be here until tomorrow. We won't have an Astro Weather tomorrow. Let me think about that. Am I going to have an Astro Weather? I might, but I will not have 15 minutes of flame tomorrow. We might be able to squeeze in one Astro Weather if I take the fast route back to the hill country. TBD. I'm leaning into no, but I'll let you know. And I'm sure if I don't, Tom will. So yeah, I'm up here and I'm going to be hanging out with my one and only biological offspring. And we are going to go to the Golden State Warriors versus the Dallas Mavericks. They have a full-on revolt happening here in Dallas since the Mavericks traded their homegrown star, their adopted son, Luka Doncic. And it is a full-on open revolt against the Adelson ownership. Wow. This is a very interesting development that's taking place here in Dallas. And I'm going to get into some of that over on 15 Minutes of Flame. And it sort of dovetails with a larger conversation that's going on with free speech, anti-Semitism, and one of our favorite Geminis, the man formerly known as Kanye West, and the artist now currently known as Ye. So I'm going to get into that. If you haven't seen the brief video of Hollywood responding to Ye, well, you're in for a treat because I'm going to play it. And it is interesting that we now are entering into this kind of Aquarian phase, right? Where in a lot of ways the playing field is starting to get leveled. And it may not always look that way, but it is. And so we'll have some astrological commentary later on 15 Minutes of Flame. And as always, try to broaden the conversation. So we're looking at it from a bit of a different perspective. In the meantime, I got everything here is cool, right? Like I'm staying in this Airbnb, and it's a luxury apartment that these people have gotten a lease on. And it's cool. They made it look cool. They made it feel cool. I walked just down the block to Ascension Coffee, and I got my cool coffee there. And there's a cool restaurant down just right half a block away, which I think I'll take my son to later. So everything here is cool. It's like has an artist vibe, you know, sort of the sort of boho artist vibe. And everybody in the coffee place, Ascension Coffee, and I think there's more than one Ascension Coffee. It's like a local chain or something, and it's it's a cool vibe, right? Everybody there is like really hip and friendly, and they have this massive cold brew coffee device. Looks like it's right out of Tartaria, and it takes about 5 to 8 minutes. And they sit down and they pour the water into the ice cold brew receptacle, and then they do their caffeinated alchemy, right? I like this. It's not Kerrville. Doesn't mean that Kerrville doesn't have its redeeming qualities and traits. It does, but I kind of like this. Anyway, we also have I'm going to call this space fog, right? I think what's going on here is just like this space fog, and it's kind of damp and cold and drizzly, and leaves behind some rather nasty fungal spores, which I've been able to sort of figure out here, and it getting into people's lungs. Apparently, there are people that are showing up with cases, and believe it or not, tuberculosis after this space fog comes in. And President Trump, you got to do an executive order to ban the space fog. I think that's next on the Trump to-do list. Get rid of the space fog. So we are in a full moon. I saw the lovely Devin Dewar. I will be on with Devin next week on her show. And Devin and I had a great session last week, and she's got a YouTube channel. Let's see if I can put the, where is it? Let me see if I can put it in here for folks so they can see it. Let me see. I think right now it's just goes by her name. There we go. I'm going to put Devin's channel in here. And some of you may have met Devin a couple of years back at our event. Lovely person, astrologer, and she is working on angels, connected with angels, the elementals, the Fey kingdom, the fairy realm, right there. So check out her channel. I'll be on with her next week, and really looking forward to that. I'd like to have some of this hip coffee, though, while I'm on that show. I think my performance might be a bit more ascended if I have it. Let's see. All right. Yes, I'm excited to be there. Absolutely. Check out Devin's channel and give her a follow. Talented person, super talented, and even better, a good person. We like to reward both talent and character if we can. All right, let's do a quick run through with chat. Starting off right at the top, Michael Cisternino is like our Ricky Henderson. He's our Ricky Henderson. If he's not batting lead off, the world just isn't right. Seeger, right there, right behind him. Brandy Herrera, 41 and reigning in Apple Valley, California. Kabuki Theater, what's going on, Bo? There she is, Christina Jurzik. What's happening, CJ? Robert Phoenix is in that one. That's me. Barbara Boots. I have okay. I'm gonna be PC. Scott, Barbara. I really hope you're. So Barbara has she has an Aquarian dog. Okay, so shout out to Enki, the Aquarian Bernays, and so there's a bunch of snow back there, and Barbara sent me some pictures of all the snow that's falling, and I asked her, I said, is Enki into the snow? And like a true Aquarian, like this is a dog that hangs out in like the Swiss Alps, or is a mountain dog, right? And it would have to be an Aquarian mountain dog to not like the snow. I'm sorry. I think this is very funny. Like, these traits are applicable to pets. They are so applicable to pets. Like, that's such an Aquarian dog move. Yeah, I'm a mountain dog, but this snow thing, I don't know, man. It's a little too much. Can I go back inside where it's warm and dry? Anyway, I think he's coming around. Scott Jersey, what's going on, Scott? Jackie Delario, got a bit of snow there in South Jersey. Miss Nikki, the cooling influence. It's funny, I got a text yesterday from one of my buddies, and it was very funny. I'm going to read the text. He said, my wife called me an hour ago when I was driving and asked, did Trump do something today? My Turkish female friends in our chat group are ganging up and talking shit about Trump. They are angry over Gaza. I said, that's old news by now, unless he provided new details. Then I started listening to today's Astro Weather, and you noted how, with the moon in Leo, women are going to be in an uproar. That explains it. Yeah. So I am woman, hear me roar. Did you ladies get your roar on yesterday? Lena Winkler, what's happening? Lemma Spank, misbehaving too. Ah, yeah, she got her bad motor scooter on. But I think I froze my eyeballs. Remember back in the day, I swear this is true. This is absolutely true. They used to have like liquid Coke, and there were people that would actually take little tiny drops of liquid Coke and put them in their eyes. I shit you not. Talk about freezing your eyeballs. Orlando, there's our gal. There's our queen, our Appalachian queen, checking in from Southwest Virginia. Hoping today's favorable to an old lady getting a hey, let's all have some good vibes for Brandy. Good vibes, Brandy. Good vibes. You know this is the good vibes. Good vibes right there. Go get that remote job. My endless road. What's happening? There's Janine, Big Dave Sullivan in the house. Melissa Stanton. I'm home on the couch watching instead of driving today. Not a bad move. Not a bad move at all. There she is, lovely and talented one. Dr. Jonas, saving Austin one tooth at a time. Mad Maxine, Lynette Jardine checking in from the Pacific Northwest. There he is, T. Jordan holding down the home front. Soul Traveler, Moira, NYC. PB, snowy here by Wichita. You know what you got to do if it's snowy there by Wichita? You got to call it the Wichita lineman, because the Wichita lineman, you know, he's going to be the guy that's going to come out there and help you deal with that snowy overload, right? So don't hesitate to get the Wichita lineman out there. Rainbows and Butterflies, Maya Rose from Mexico. Sound is good. Yeah, it's the old lavalier mic. It's been a lifesaver. Harry Bowie, hey, Moonsprout, Denise, Desiree Conrad. Hi, Desiree. Valeria Rubens, Thor at the door. There's my guy, Steve. Night's Light. Go through a few more here. I have met the Buddha. Will I kill him? I don't know. It's a good question. There was a song by this group Shriekback, who were former members of Gang of Four, Barry Andrews from XTC, and they did this one song. It's very cool. Maybe I'll try and play it today. It's called "I'm on the Road and I'm Gunning for the Buddha." It's really good. I saw Shriekback. They were amazing. Lori E, checking in from the laundromat. What if you had a combination of a laundromat and a butcher? You could get a lot of stuff done there. You get your laundry done, and you could pick up your meat, and it can be called the laundromat. But that's an idea that I think has not really seen the light of day. Somebody should capitalize on the laundromat. Neil Smith, way up there. Wisconsin, Josie's Jazzy Junk. There's my guy, Zero the Immortal. Lynn, think of Felice. Thanks for the kind words on Sunday. My pleasure. Sometimes my planets in Libra do their thing. Sigurd, in a circular timeline, Buddha is a result of the Eat, Pray, Love franchise. It really is, isn't it? It's become fashionably mainstream in luxury apartments that are leased out for Airbnbs. Let's see who else we have here. Still light. Oh, we have a participant from Thailand in the house. Hoorah! That's awesome. Let's see. Anybody else? Hammer time. That is a good handle. Hammer time. I don't know. I just like Julia Roberts more as an instrument of time weaponry than this. The fog is filled with parasites. Of course it is. It is the space fog. Absolute space fog. Not a fan. Beach Barn. I want to ban the space fog. You know, back in the day, I'm gonna jump into the weather here real soon. Back in the day, when I was I'm still rather mischievous. But this was, I think, maybe around 2000 and I don't know, maybe 2006, 2005, about 2000. We'll say 2006. I went online. I created my own bumper sticker, and this was all very new, right back in 2006. So I created my own bumper sticker, and I got an image of chemtrails, and I was able to put that in the space where you create the image, right? And on the bumper sticker, I said, "A day without chemtrails is like a day without cancer." And I put it on the bumper of my car. This is 2006. And at that time, my ex-wife didn't have the same kind of geopolitical views that I did. But I remember rolling into this supermarket in Berkeley, and this old Berkeley liberal walks up to me, sees my bumper, says, "What do you mean by that?" I said, "Man, it's the chemtrails. Don't you know the chemtrails? What are they?" And I pointed up in the sky. I said, "Those right there." And I began to basically red pill an old Berkeley liberal. Imagine that. Yeah. Okay, where are we? February 13th. We got the 12th. Where are we going? This is what happens when you come in after like 5 hours of driving and you decide that you're going to, let's program the show at 1 in the morning. Oh, that sounds like a good idea. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe to the channel. We've reached a milestone here on YouTube after many unsubscribed folks and people who have voluntarily unsubscribed for whatever reason. I don't know. I don't know why they want to unsubscribe from my show. But we've reached 15,000 people. It was so momentous that YouTube even sent me a little reminder. Oh, thank you, YouTube. Thank you for reminding me. Thank you for giving me and thank you all for being a part of it. All right, let's get into the weather. Here we go. I got it right. So far, we're doing pretty good on the perfect shows. We're doing all right. Doing all right. It's actually feeling all right. There we are, full moon, exactamundo. Right there, all you people on the road out there, you be extra safe today. It is chaos on the highways. We got that Mercury-Uranus square, Uranus squaring the moon in Leo. That's my lane, motherfucker. Get the fuck out. Just be extra careful and don't poke the bear on the highway. And if you do, make sure that you're carrying. Yeah, I mean, this is all fixed, right? But it's not just about driving. It's about POV, point of view, which should go over quite well over on 15 Minutes of Flame, where I begin to scrape the third rail. That'll be interesting. Should be very stimulating and thought-provoking at the very least. But this is a day where, people are invested in keeping it real. So if you're going to keep, you ever see Dave Chappelle, when keeping it real goes wrong, you may want to just factor that in a little bit, right? Do you want to be right, or do you want to be what's the word? Do you want to be right? It's not about getting along, right? But do you want to be right and sacrifice your position for principle? And sometimes you do. I mean, come on. Sometimes you got to keep it real and you sacrifice position for principle. You sacrifice it. It's the way it is. Sometimes that's just the way it is. You know, you gotta ride or die sometimes with kind of what brought you here, and then you deal with the consequences. Other times it's like, okay, do I really want to break the glass and pull the alarm? Today's one of those days. So think twice about breaking the glass and pulling the alarm. Now, is there a situation where you can break the glass and pull the alarm? I would say yes. And it would be in defense of the other. Okay? Now, you also have to realize that if you're going to be in defense of the other, make sure the other wants you to defend them. Have you ever done that before, where you defended somebody and they were offended that you defended them? I mean, that happens, right? It's like, I could have stood up for myself. Or, you know, my favorite, this is where you got to be really careful here, because this also gets into the family zone with the moon in Leo. I remember my first girlfriend, and she was a Nicaraguan, and she used to complain heartily about her very strict father, who was originally from Panama. I think he actually knew Omar Torrijos. So he's or where was he from? No, he wasn't from Panama. He was from Nicaragua. Mother was from Costa Rica. Anyway, no, Somoza. He knew the Somoza guy. A good dude. I mean, he was a good dude. He battled his alcoholism, joined AA. I really liked the guy. But man, he was strict, old school, Latino, head of the household, kind of macho dad, right? And she would complain bitterly at times about him. And I'm like, oh yeah, okay, I get it, right? She's not into the dude all that much. And I remember one time I kind of crossed that line, and I said something, and man, she snapped back on me. And I think it was about her dad. It was like this whole thing with family, that even though people might bitterly complain about their family, sometimes it's this weird sacred ground where you go in and you say, yeah, that guy's a real fucking asshole. Or, yeah, that guy can't hold his liquor. When he drinks, he's a complete dick. And the family member will jump on their side. Like, you know, you have no right to talk about my father like that. I'm like, well, holy shit. You've just spent the last 6 months running the guy down, and I'm just sticking up for you. This is one of those moments. You have to be very aware about what you're getting into. And that's even with sticking up for somebody, with this sun sextile to, and it's moving away a little bit, to Chiron. It's like, I've got the courage, and I'm going to, literally, because the other side of that Chiron is Libra, right? So it's about balance and fairness and yada, yada, yada. And so just be on your toes today, and know that if you're going to get into some kind of conflict, verbal confrontation, and something that is emotionally triggered, particularly around family, that you know what you're getting into. Because once you get into it, it's going to be hard to get out. It's going to be very difficult to extricate yourself from that conversation. And it may not go all that well. And with Black Moon, Lilith, and Libra, I would not talk shit about mothers today. Right? This is a day where even if you have an issue with your mother or mother-in-law, you may want to just wait, right? You may want to wait a couple of days before you bring it up. You may want to wait until that moon goes into Virgo, although that's highly critical nonetheless. And just be careful, because that's also sacred ground here with the moon in Leo. And for all you mothers out there that are having challenges with your Gen Z kids, this is also a day where you may want to ease up on the tension. There's tension in the air today, and it's like we're at the peak of the tension. And while Trump has been absolutely taking a jackhammer to Washington, D.C., we're now starting to see the rise of the resistance in the form of judges in these rulings where these judges are coming in and basically, no, fuck you, you can't do that. We're in that territory now. Something has got to give. And I'm wondering when we see the first shot across the bow with one of these judges. Now, I don't know if Trump can replace these judges. But who knows, man? Executive order, you never know, right? It's like, well, I just signed an executive order today to send all the judges to Venezuela. Anything can happen now. Did you see the picture of Elon Musk with his kid in the Oval Office? Kind of cute, right? But there was also this picture. So we're in kind of Gemini world, right? With Jupiter and Gemini. There's this picture, I don't know if you saw it, of John F. Kennedy in the Oval Office with JFK Jr. He's literally in the desk. I don't know if you guys have seen this. And it's juxtaposed with Elon Musk's kid next to the desk with Trump. Now, I don't know if this is just an obvious photo psyop, but it's kind of interesting because Trump is in Gemini world, JFK is in Gemini world. I've talked about the whole Gemini connection in the weird Gemini timeline, which starts right here in Dallas on 11/22/1963 and takes us all the way up to 9/11/2001. And Trump is part of it. He's part of this weird timeline, and particularly with RFK Jr. In tow, right? We're moving. We're if you think about it in these terms, let's say, for instance, RFK Jr. was really about disassembling parts of which he was. He was, starting to get rid of the CIA, and he was doing things, right? Now, he was also doing other things, but he was heavily handing over tons of power to unions during this period. Like he was granting unions almost unlimited power. I went back and I looked at the executive orders that JFK signed. And I was like, oh wow, he's paying back these people that helped him get elected, right? So he's doing things like this is what happens. You see Trump doing the Trump stuff and paying back these people, which, quite frankly, a lot of these people I can't fucking stand. But then he's also doing the populist thing. And JFK was kind of doing the same thing. He was doing these paybacks, and he was moving down this path where it's like, okay, let's start to disassemble the intelligence state. And that's part of what got him into trouble. Not all of it, but part of it. And so Trump is kind of doing he's kind of like taking the baton in some ways over from JFK, right? I'm just wondering, how long will it take Trump to keep his hands off of Cuba? Keep your eye on Cuba. Keep your eye on Cuba and Trump. When Trump starts talking about Cuba, that we are morphing back towards the Kennedy timeline. All right. What else do we have here? There's our Saturn 18 Pisces. We talked about all this yesterday. There's that hot and heavy, ready to roll Venus and Aries, creeping up on Chiron, getting ready for the retrograde. How is everybody since Jupiter has moved forward? Do you feel like I've just gone kind of dormant on Twitter. When Mars was in Gemini, I was fucking living on Twitter. And since it's been retrograde, now we're getting to this point now where Mars, this is it. Like, this is as far back as Mars will go at 17 degrees. So basically, from now until the 28th, which is 16 days, Mars is in a very slow crawl and then a long station, hanging out here at 17 degrees. It's a period where you may not feel like you're able to get much done. However, if you approach what you're doing differently, you might get a bit more done. Because we have this sextile with Mars and Uranus, and it's not your standard operating procedure. So so Mars is retrograde still, but at 17, right? That's it. We've gone as far back with Mars and Cancer as we can go, and then it's going to station for a long time. And the station with Mars is going to be very interesting, very, very interesting. And I would assume that once it moves forward, that we're going to see a lot more activity on the political front. And I was thinking, and I think to some extent that this is actually true, that once Trump was elected, that it was a referendum on the end of wokeness. A referendum on the end of wokeness. Because there's a lot of DEI disassembling that's taking place. You know, he signs this bill to end transgender athletes participating in women's sports in the NCAA. I think it's significant. And some of you may have daughters out there that may want to play college athletics. Do you want your daughter to play across from or compete with somebody formerly known as Jake? I'm not sure. Right. So a lot of this is going on. And I think a lot of people believe that, okay, this is a referendum on the end of woke. While I think that that's true to a large extent, you know, we just saw the Super Bowl on Sunday night, and all the commercials, all that stuff is built about a year out, right? So all the commercials, the halftime show, everything that the NFL brought to the table was anything but that. It was kind of like we were living in, I don't know, 2021 again. You know, we're like stuck in this loop, you know, this weird sort of Groundhog Day loop. But it's not the same. Like it is just not the same. And the reason it's not the same is because these things are hitting differently now. You know, I saw over on Twitter, there were people who were lauding Kendrick Lamar's performance. I don't know why. They think, you know, it's like, oh, it was cool, it was hip. Here's America chilling to Kendrick Lamar. And it was it was incredibly subversive if you were really paying attention. It was subversion wrapped in red, white, and blue. And there's a backlash now. So this is very interesting. You're going to see, once Mars goes direct, you're going to see both of these sides, the forces of the woke and the people that have had it up to their third eye with wokeness engaged. And it's going to be a very interesting time in terms of the so-called culture war, particularly because, you know, once Mars goes direct, it's going to be in that square with Chiron in Aries, and people are in a place where they don't give a fuck. And again, this dovetails into this conversation that I'm going to have on 15 Minutes of Flame, which was clearly sparked by the latest barrage of bipolar tweets by Ye, formerly known as Kanye West, and Hollywood's response. So this is interesting, right? We have this referendum, theoretically, with the election of Trump, and Trump's lightning fast response to ending a lot of this wokeness. But these people who have permeated this culture have really dug in, right? And they're kind of like in the trenches. You know, this is like the Battle of Verdun, right? And they're in the trenches, and it's ugly, and it's going to get uglier. And the reason why it's going to get uglier is because the people who have been quiet or silent, right? These are the people who have had their tongues untied by Trump. Whatever you think of Donald Trump, he has been the avenger of the Vox Populi to a large extent, not to a total extent, but to a large extent. And this goes back to 2016, when all of a sudden people are, oh my God, I can think that, I can say that. Fast forward, it's 2025. For whatever reason, Elon Musk is allowing, Twitter or X to be more of an open range in terms of discussions. And hey, man, anytime you get people like Stu Peters doing a Twitter space on JQ Radio, right? We're in a different world. And you could all say, oh, okay, well, that's all a setup. And, they're compiling all the information on the people who hate Jews, and, they're going to have a new Nazi list, whatever, right? But once you let the cat out of the bag, once you get the toothpaste out of it, you can't put it back. And so this is across the border, right? This is across every part of the spectrum when it comes to speaking up or dealing with uncomfortable subjects, right? So when you have Mars going direct in Cancer, you're going to have this pushback on both sides against whatever Trump has been cooking since he got into office. And it is going to be very intense. And once the governor has been taken off about speech and what's acceptable, it's going to be very different, right? The gloves are off. And again, I'm going to talk about that over on 15 minutes. So if you want to be a part of that conversation, or or even just listen, the links are there inside the description of the show. Okay, let's get into the star of the day, and let's do a shout out for True Hemp Science. Okay, let's go into. There we go. By the way, if you like the show, share it with people. It helps us. It helps us grow, right? It definitely helps the show grow. All right, what do we want to do? We want to do this. Hold on. Here we go. Share this tab. All right. So let's bring up our star of the day, and let's talk about True Hemp Science. True Hemp Science is your one-stop shop for all of your CBD needs. I brought some gummies with me. I should have used them as a prop. I got some moon dust gummies. Now, I didn't take them while I was driving yesterday. You always have to be careful. You always have to be conscious and aware of what's in your system while you drive, right? So I didn't take any yesterday on the drive up, because honestly, it was a little white knuckly in places, and I knew it would be, and I knew we had this Mercury-Uranus square, so I wasn't gonna force it. But I did bring them just in case at a certain point during the day. I wanted to have my own kind of version of Soma. So they're here, they're with me. And you can get those gummies and many more great CBD products over on True Hemp Science. And all you got to do is type in 15MINS, spend $100 or more, and you will get the goodie bag, where you will get to experience the goodness, the beyond goodness, the extra double bonus goodness of True Hemp Science. And $150 gets you free shipping, always a 30-day money-back guarantee. When you buy Chris's CBD products, you're supporting a mainstream business. You're also helping to support the show. Also, if you wanted to buy me a cup of coffee, I'll throw that in there. That's another thing you can do to help support the show as well. All right, let's talk about Bill Russell. Disclaimer, I don't like Bill Russell. And I know this is really sacrilege. I'm gonna probably step on, I'm gonna cross some lines more than likely with Bill Russell. Now, I'm going to try to bring out his attributes, but I'm also going to talk about some of his negatives. Okay. Now, Bill Russell, widely considered one of the greatest basketball players of all time. was born in Monroe, Louisiana, eventually matriculates to Oakland. This is what happens, kind of post-World War, during World War II, right? Families move from the South. You have the Great Migration going up to Detroit, Chicago, St. Louis, and California, where there's a lot of shipbuilding and there's a lot of, manual labor that's taking place very quickly, particularly in Oakland, right? They have the shipyards, naval yards, things like that. So that's where Bill Russell grows up. And then eventually he winds up going to USF, where he is a two-time champion under Pete Newell at USF. The USF Dons, a Jesuit school, won the NC2A championships 2 years in a row. Bill Russell was part of the 1956 American Olympic team in Melbourne, Australia. Highly decorated. He winds up in the Boston Celtics. Him, Casey Jones, Sam Jones, Al Attles, they begin to bring the Black American experience into Boston. And while the team is great and they win all of these championships, Russell experiences Boston as racist, right? Like he is not comfortable in Boston. Even though later on he stays and becomes a player coach, which I think is interesting given that he's got a Sun-Saturn conjunction, right? But Saturn's like the coach, but he's also the player with the Sun. Heavy 10th house. So Bill Russell becomes kind of this rights activist, right? Like he's in the mix with the 1960s, and he has a decidedly like NAACP, we're on the wrong side of history sort of view of race. And it's understandable. Boston, probably not the best place, but he's there, right? And what's interesting is that as an Aquarian, he finds himself in this very white, kind of very segregated part of the United States. Like if he'd wound up playing for the Lakers, or if he'd wound up playing even for the New York Knicks, I don't think Bill Russell goes through what he goes through. And because he's playing for the Celtics, it just hits differently, right? And he's a tremendous athlete, absolutely tremendous athlete. He's not much of a scorer, but man, is he going to block shots, and he's going to rebound, he's going to get on the fast break. And he and Wilt Chamberlain, by the way, Wilt Chamberlain is a Leo who's on the other side. So you have the clash of these titans who are opposite signs, and they're very opposite in terms of their personalities. Bill Russell's very serious, right? He's very, very serious. Wilt Chamberlain wants to fucking have fun with an emphasis on fuck, right? So they're, like if you were going to hang out with somebody for one night, if I had to choose between Wilt Chamberlain and Bill Russell when they were lucid and kind of in their game, and I was like able to hang out with them at a bar, I'd hang out with Wilt Chamberlain every single night. Are you kidding me? Because Wilt may be able to get 3 women, but there's always going to be like a fourth that, who knows, maybe with Wilt. Maybe it'd have to be 6. You might get the 6th. You might get the 6th man or the 6th woman, right? But he would just be fun. Like Wilt Chamberlain was a fun guy. Bill Russell wasn't fun. Everything seemed very serious. He's got a Sun-Saturn conjunction. And he's got Jupiter in Libra, so it's trining his Sun and trining his Saturn. So Russell's kind of larger than life, literally larger than life, right? And he makes this huge imprint on the NBA, and he's part of this period that he's connected to civil rights, right? And there's a part of Bill Russell that's actually also kind of bitter. Like there's a bitter side of Bill. No matter how many rings or how many trophies or how many accolades or how many awards or how many wives, Bill Russell was married 4 times, and all of his marriages are kind of weird. He's got Venus and Aquarius. And not that you're going to have weird relationships with Venus and Aquarius, but you got to kind of have weird relationships. They're just different, right? It's his last marriage. Bill Russell's like 83 and his wife is 54. And Bill spends a lot of his time in Seattle because he builds a relationship with the Seattle Supersonics. I think he winds up being their coach and general manager for a while and builds a home in Seattle. So it's not just Boston, but Seattle kind of becomes Bill Russell's, adopted home. And that's where he meets his second wife. She's Canadian, and when you read her bio, it's really funny. Like she was like, I don't know, 115th on the Canadian Women's Pro Golfer Tour. I'm like, wow, man. I didn't even know they had 115 pro women golfers in Canada. That's something. She got a Wikipedia mention. She played golf with Bill. And so again, even late in life, right, you've got that Venus-Saturn conjunction, and he's going to wind up, as he's older, marrying somebody who is younger. And that can go the other way, but as Bill continued to get older, they continued to be younger. That's just the nature of Russell's relationships. Now, what's funny is I was watching this game last night, and I watch old NBA games, and it was the Seattle Supersonics versus the Boston Celtics. It was from 1981. I believe it was I think it was a preseason game. It wasn't even a real game, right? And the announcers were, what's his name? Brett, forget his last name, but he's got the funky word last name. It'll come to me. Hot Rod Hundley and Bill Russell. Now, I have listened to Bill Russell announce on a number of games. And I remember a couple of years ago listening to Bill Russell. What the fuck is he saying? Like, what is he saying? Like, I was listening last night, and he was talking about playoffs. And he was saying, oh no, this was a different game. This was the Lakers, and it was the Lakers versus the San Diego Clippers. And they were talking about the playoffs. And that's why Hot Rod Hundley, Brett, what the fuck was his last name? You know who he is. And he was talking about the playoffs. And he was saying, it was like, these teams need to win more playoffs. He's making kind of this big deal about having to win more games to get into the playoffs. I'm like, no shit, Bill. And nobody's like saying, hey, Bill, you're being kind of Captain Obvious here, right? Because nobody wanted to ever cross Bill Russell. So his broadcasting standards were horrible. I mean, just absolutely horrible. And so, well, yeah, we're just going to let that go by. The other thing, too, is this Neptune-Mars opposition. And I can't help but not think that at times, even with all of his accolades and with all of the media, once I think he started winning rings in Boston, even the Boston writers loved him. People loved Bill Russell. They respected Bill Russell. It's like if you could have put out a red carpet everywhere Bill Russell went, people would have fucking done that. I'm telling you. But with that Neptune-Mars opposition, it never seemed to be enough, right? It was never quite enough. He had this void that, for whatever reason, he could not fill. And I think at times he was a very unhappy person. Maybe that's the sort of the dour nature of the Sun-Saturn conjunction. But if we go over here, we have Chiron in Taurus in his first house. You know, what are we talking about with Chiron and Taurus? People that have it it's not easy for them to be on Earth. It's not easy to have an Earth suit. I would imagine that Bill Russell at times felt very self-conscious about his height. Wilt Chamberlain? Fuck no. I think Wilt loved his height. I'm not sure Bill did. It made him stand out. Right? In some ways, it made him stand out in a good way, but it also made him stand out in ways that I think made him uncomfortable. And you get that Sun square with Chiron. It's like, okay, how much of this is about your experience of being sort of the victim of prejudice or the victim of social injustice? And how much of this is really based on the fact that you're an alien in your own body. And that no matter where you go or where you are, it's not always going to be easy because of the gravity of the situation. Literally the gravity at this height. Gravity takes its toll, especially on tall people. So this, to me, Chiron in Taurus in his first house is Bill Russell's chip on his shoulder. Now, conversely, it probably helped turn him into a good basketball player. Bill Russell kind of played with a controlled rage. Wilt Chamberlain never played with a controlled rage. Wilt Chamberlain liked playing basketball. I'm not saying that Bill didn't, but he definitely had a different MO. And he's a very complicated guy, doesn't have a lot of Earth in his chart. He's got Neptune and Virgo in the 5th house right down there, right? Not very grounded. He's Taurus rising, Chiron and Taurus. I mean, let's face it, that's about it. Earth was not an easy experience for Bill Russell. However, in the media, ultimately in the media, broadcasting career, you know, an icon. He played for a long time. He was around the game for a long time. He was a player coach, right? All that is cemented up here with Aquarius, right? He's a new breed of player in the NBA. He and Wilt are the new breed, right? They bring an athleticism and a type of game to the NBA that people haven't seen before. But with Russell, it was always a sense of, it was grim. You know, Bill was grim. He played grim, right? And I think it served him. I think at the end of the day, you go with what your strengths are, what your assets are, and ultimately that's what Bill Russell laned in. He will always be considered one of the great basketball, and he was great. I'm not going to take anything away from his playing. And I also feel like there are things about Russell that get completely overlooked because he's an icon and because he stands for certain things. We tend to overlook some of the other things that maybe he got a lot of mileage out of. Let's just put it that way. You said, well, Robert, why don't you be in his shoes? Well, first of all, I couldn't fit in his shoes. You know, I couldn't fit in the guy's shoes, literally and figuratively. But if I could, right, I'd be, okay, all right, I'm 6'11". I can jump out of the gym. I can swat any basketball. I can become famous. I'll take that. You know, I'd take that for a day, right? I'll try those shoes on. Why not? We'll see what happens. So there you go. I know I'm being a bit critical with Bill, but nobody really is. Nobody's really critical of Bill Russell. I'm your guy. I'm your Mercury, square Uranus, opposing the moon in Leo. And I acknowledge his greatness without a doubt. I acknowledge his greatness and the legacy of the Boston Celtics and the great dynasty of the 1960s. Doesn't happen without Bill Russell. And he's the worst fucking announcer, one of the worst fucking announcers I've ever heard in my life. I mean, I've seen multiple games from the past. I'm like, did he really just say that? Did he really just, and people, Brett Musburger, they just kind of gloss over. Somebody sometimes said something. It was like, well, Bill, do you know? And then just kind of went nowhere, right? Anyway, there you go. Here's your True Hemp Science story of the day. All right, I'm out of here. I tend to lose people when I get into the story of the day. I don't know why. Like, I don't want to hear this guy rant. All right, thanks for being here, being part of the show. Headed over to 15 minutes. If you want to be a part of a scintillating, provocative, stirring, perhaps even controversial conversation, come on over and join us. In the meantime, have a blessed day. Treat each other well. I love you all. Chattaria, you're number one, numero uno. And we'll see you back here tomorrow. Drive safe out there. Drive safe out there, right? Give up that lane. Let that other person be an asshole today. All right. Bye for now.